Well, yesterday we discussed Attorney General Pam Bondi's claim that the FBI is hiding thousands of pages of Epstein's secrets. So how might they be doing this? Well, Steve Friend is the FBI whistleblower that we know and love, and he's the host of the American Radicals podcast. So, Steve, let's go into this, right? What role did the FBI, do you think, that they played in this Epstein documents case yesterday?
I think there's a lot of subterfuge that went on in the lead up to this. I mean, there's sort of an inner civil war amongst the old guard of the FBI pushing back on the new director who's come in and going to be shattering the status quo, new sheriff in town, new boss. And I think there's a lot of resistance, particularly from the New York field office, where a lot of the investigation was going on. They had access and privy to a lot of the documents, and they wanted to send a message, a shot across the bow, I guess maybe a last best effort here of Kash Patel and at the helm as the director, and they wanted to resist and hold back and maybe create and generate some sort of static between him and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General.
Do you think that anybody, that Kash has tried to go to the New York office today, that he sent his own people to that office? Are you hearing anything that they're trying to get these documents and make sure that they do come out?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. I mean, Kash Patel has surrounded himself with people who are his own appointees. He's got an advisory council, a committee of guys. I know some of them. These are guys that are all in for let's change the status quo, and they're going to be going in there, and they really, frankly, have to at this point. I mean, this is a challenge. This is sort of on the prison yard where there is an up and coming there who's trying to assert their dominance here, and unfortunately, it bore itself out as an ugly incident yesterday where it made the Attorney General look bad. It made Kash Patel look bad, but there's an opportunity here. I mean, these guys have sort of outed themselves as being the last bastions of the resistance to the new day of the FBI. And I am hopeful that we're going to actually see people held accountable, walked out of the office, and lose their careers over this.
Yeah, well, we're in this internal struggle right now, right? We know that the FBI is going up against the New York field office. So what do you think the odds are, right? The documents were supposed to be handed over at 8 a.m. So you know how this stuff goes. What do you say the odds are that actually happened?
I don't think it actually did happen. I think that this is still a continuing and ongoing struggle here that is just getting uglier and uglier by the moment. And then look, this is just the reality of the situation. Every moment that goes by, that viper just coils itself around you more and more. And Kash Patel's learning that firsthand now. He's getting his first crack at it. Every second that goes by, the bureaucracy is trying to suck him in, throw up as many guardrails as they can, as many speed bumps as they can, as many distractions as they can. And this is really just the first challenge that he's facing, and it's a pretty public one as well. And he's fortunate enough to actually have a really good relationship with Pam Bondi. I know they're close and they're friends. He also has a pretty big supporter over in the White House who really embraces that pugilist mindset. So I think that this is going to be the opportunity for him to step forward and be the guy that I know him to be, and that's a guy who's uber competent and qualified and willing to take on the fight.
Is there anything that Trump could be doing right now to speed up that process?
I think we need to set some examples. I think that there needs to be some heads on pikes by close of business today, and with the people walking out and heading into their weekend thinking, do I really want to go in there on Monday and challenge this and continue to fight on it? We might not get the Epstein list given out to us today on Friday, which I don't necessarily hate that much because it is a Friday news cycle, right? We're going to have the Friday news dump. Maybe come in fresh on Monday and actually have an example, and President Trump could do that, could assert that, or at least empower Kash Patel or empower members of the Department of Justice and do so in a very public way. It has to be similar to what we saw during the Senate Judiciary hearings when Kash Patel was testifying in front of the confirmation, and we had numerous, in the dozens, members of senior executive service who were walked out in front of their subordinates, in front of the personnel, and that was just in the back of their minds. And if you remember, that was heading into that last week before we were going to have the decision to have the deferred resignation program. And you just have to think that once that message gets sent, that maybe they reassess and reevaluate, one, is my job essential? And am I really willing to stand and dig my heel into the ground and push back when all of the winds are behind releasing this list? I mean, there's not a good ground to stand on. There's no support to say, I think we should keep these pedophiles it's secret. It's really in the better interest of the American people.
You put on X the picture once again of the paint job at Quantico, right? We talked about this before with you. It was one of my favorite things when we saw it, right? It was all the DEI words. They were up there on the wall, and they were just putting a fresh coat of gray paint over it just to, signify the erasure of the DEI movement there in the FBI. We know, like you said on X, it's going to take a lot more than a fresh coat of paint. This story is so big. The headlines are worldwide with this one. We know the rot goes deep in the FBI. So how much of this story being as large as it is, will it make an example for the future going forward for what the FBI will or will not do for those deep state individuals that are still there? Will this be enough to just say, okay, maybe we don't actually have all that wiggle room that we thought there in the deep state?
I cannot think of a more clear example. I mean, we talk about like how the left is continuing to take the 20 side of every 80-20 issue now, and it's really just been great to watch and to see them self-implode. This isn't an 80-20 issue. I don't even think it's a 99-1 issue. The only people who do not want this information put out there are people who are on the Epstein client list, and apparently members of the FBI who just want to send a message that we're going to resist no matter what it is. But I think we're at a point now where if this is not actually fleshed out, if we do not actually hold people accountable, maybe we'll actually get the silver lining either way. Maybe we'll actually have it sent home and hammered home to the American people that this agency is just not salvageable. We have to just start fresh, start anew, because the amount of rot that exists, and you're right to point to that picture there, you can't just slap a fresh coat of paint on it. It has been almost a full generation going back to 2009 when Barack Obama was the president and just fundamentally changed and transformed the way that they brought personnel into the agency. That is almost a full government career. That's government-wide, but particularly to the FBI. These are people who are truly convinced. They have the hubris to believe that they are beyond any sort of reproach or questioning, which is why they were resistant to even turn over their names about their accountability as it pertained to January 6th. They think that this information that is at their fingertips is actually theirs, not the American people. They don't look at the American people as their customers. They don't look at them as people who they're supposed to try to protect against fraud or force. They just see them as an opportunity to personally enrich themselves and advance their careers and maybe send a message that we are actually in charge. If that is actually pushed out there, the silver lining will be that the FBI will be gone. But I think we're actually going to go the other way on this one. I think there's enough mettle and resolve in Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, and certainly Donald Trump, as he's shown over the last year of the campaign trail, that there's going to be accountability in the form of firings and hopefully even some prosecutions.
I just want to ask one question about the timing, right, on these Epstein things. There's a lot of chatter going on Twitter right now. Katie Pavlich, some other people saying that Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal to the Supreme Court may stop these documents from coming out. In your experience, where court cases are ongoing, is that something that they're going to try and use and say, well, we meant to give it to you, but there's this case going, and the judge is certainly not going to let us do it?
That just doesn't hold water for me. I mean, they present the facts in her initial trial. I mean, unless there's a new evidence that's exculpatory that was withheld, this is actually more evidence. And in that trial, what was so bizarre and crazy and really in keeping the secrecy behind the Epstein client list was that she was convicted of trafficking, but we didn't know to who. It's a drug seller who's selling and peddling narcotics, but we don't know who the buyers were. I think that that is not going to hold water for the American people. And look, let's just get down to brass tacks. If Ghislaine Maxwell's case is jeopardized and she walks free, but we're able to bring in hundreds and hundreds of pedophiles who are around the earth and are in positions of prominence and power, I think I make that trade.